now releasing all goblins.
Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about the sponsors for my channel. Card Conduit is the best way to sell your unused Magic cards. Whether you've got a box of unsorted bulk, or a complete and alphabetized set, there's a great option for everyone. With a payout averaging 19% better than using any one buy list, and that's after fees are applied, you can rest assured you'll get the best bang for your buck. If you're a skeptic like me, their easy customer service and detailed reports make the whole interaction transparent and safe. And if you use the affiliate link in the description below, or the promo code MTGMUDSTA, you'll save 10% off their fees. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. Not to mention an easy to use and great online buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMUDSTA, your first purchase of MTG sealed and singles will be 5% off. And Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest deck. So be sure to use the code MUDSTA or the affiliate link down below to save 5% on your next order. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's patron shoutout goes to Andrew Harala. Thanks Andrew for supporting me through Patreon. Today's game has a lot of exciting stuff, the first of which is my announcing that hopefully tomorrow night around 6:30 PM Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be playing the pre-con decks from Modern Horizons 3, so be sure to tune back in on my channel to watch us battle it out. I've also got a great game lined up for you today, in what Harry, who scripts my games, has aptly named Felix Fest. And in today's game, I'm playing my Felix Five-Boots deck, keeping Sword of War and Peace, Forest, Lavispur Boots, Nature's Lore, Command Tower, Grazalax Illithid Scholar, and Kaito Shizuki. Felix is playing with himself, aka playing Felix Five-Boots as well, and I'm going to make a lot of inappropriate jokes about this. He's keeping Arcane Heist, Gix Yawgmoth Praetor, Gonti Canny Inquisitor, Sol Ring, Fetid Pools, Zagoth Triome, and Twilight Mire. Seb is playing the Mycotyrant, keeping Felwar Stone, Myriad Landscape, Ash Barrens, Colony Garden, Swamp, Springbloom Druid, and an Arcane Signet. Last but not least, Maxim is playing his Eris Roar of the Storm deck, keeping Reliquary Tower, 2 Islands, Mountain, Anticipate, Flame Jab, and an Izzet Signet. I win the die roll and start us off. I draw and play a Command Tower, and then pay 1 for Lavispur Boots. Felix has a Twilight Mire, and he casts Sol Ring. He follows that up by tapping the Sol Ring for Talisman of Resilience. Seb just plays a tap Myriad Landscape. Maxim draws and plays a Mountain. I've got a Reflecting Pool, and I then pay 2 for a Nature's Lore to go and find a land. Felix plays a tapped Zagoth Triome, but is still able to cast Gix, losing 1 from tapping his Talisman. Seb draws and has a Swamp for turn, and they then cast an Arcane Signet. Maxim plays an Island and casts his own Signet with an Izzet Signet and passes back to me. I draw, play a Forest, and I have my eye on the prize, ramping hard. I cast Kadama's Reach to find a basic for the field and 1 for my hand. Felix draws and continues with his tapped lands, playing a Fetid Pool. He then casts himself, and he goes to combat. He swings Gix at max for 3, and loses 2, and draws 2 from Gix. After that, he passes to Seb. Seb draws and plays a Colony Garden, which comes in tapped and makes them a plant token. They then sacrifice the Myriad Landscape to save some time, and go and find some basics while they're passing. Maxim draws and plays a tapped Steam Vents. He then casts a Flame Jab and targets Felix, the person, not the commanders, who takes 1, and after that, Max passes. I draw and play a Swamp. I cast Grazalax and then move the Lavispur Boots onto him. I then go to combat. I swing him at max for 4, who takes the hit, and I draw from Grazalax, as well as losing 1 from Felix's Gix trigger to draw again. Felix plays a Swamp for turn and casts an Arcane Heist, targeting my Kadama's Reach with it, but I respond with Force of Negation to prevent the Cypher spell from going onto one of his creatures. Moving to combat, Felix swings himself at me, and I take 5 from Felix, and he gets to draw 2 and lose 2 from his Gix. Afterwards, Felix passes. Seb draws and casts the Mycotyrant, and then plays a Felwar Stone, and cycles an Ash Barrens to find a forest. They then play and crack a Bloodstained Mire, going to find a Leech-ridden swamp. After that, Seb makes 2 fungi from the Mycotyrant and passes turn. During their end step, Max casts an Anticipate and keeps some cards. Max draws and plays an expressive iteration. He exiles a Mind Stone to it, and then plays an island and then casts the Mind Stone. He then also plays a Swift-Foot Boots, and he passes back to me. I play a Forest for turn and cast a Cephalid Constable, and move the Lavispur Boots onto it. Going to combat, the Constable goes at Felix, who blocks with Gix, and I bounce the Constable back to the hand with Grazilax. I then cast Garruk's Uprising in my post-combat main phase, and I pass the turn to Felix. Felix draws and plays an island. He plays out Feywild Visitor, and follows up with Gonti, Uncanny Acquisitor. Moving to combat, Felix plays with himself as he swings at Max, and Gix goes at me. Neither of us block, so we both take the hits, with Felix drawing 4, losing 4, and making 4 Fairy Dragon tokens, plus exiling the top 2 cards of Max and I's libraries. With nothing else, Felix then moves to discard and passes to Seb. Seb draws and plays a Forest. They cast Ayara, draining their opponents for 1 as she enters, and then a Springbloom Druid, sacrificing a Forest and going to find 2 more forests to put to field. Going to combat, Seb swings a Fungus at Max and a Fungus at me, and we each take the 1. Seb then gets to draw 2 cards and loses 2 from the Gix triggers. In their post-combat main phase, they cast Altar of Dementia, and then sacrifice the 2 fungi to mill 2. Moving to their end step, Seb then makes 2 more fungi, and drains us all for 2 since they're black creatures that Ayara sees. Max draws and plays a mountain. He casts Eris, and then follows up a Flame Jab from his graveyard to pick off a fairy token. This has Max making a 4/4 Prowess Dragon token from Eris' trigger, and with nothing else, he passes. I've got an island for turn, and I cast my own Felix, drawing off Garruk's Uprising, and then move the Lavispur Boots onto Felix. Going to combat, I swing Felix at Felix, and he takes 6 from Felix. I draw 2 from Grazilax, and pass after that. Felix draws and plays Sword of Fire and Ice. He equips it onto Felix, and then casts Feed the Swarm, and targets Ayara. Seb responds by sacrificing her to Altar of Dementia, milling themselves for 2, and Felix then moves to combat. Felix the man swings Felix the creature at me, and the fairy dragons go at Seb. We both take our damage, with Felix drawing 4, losing 4, and making 2 fairy dragon tokens, and exiling 2 cards from the top of Seb's and Mai's library. He also draws 2 more from the Sword of Fire and Ice, and deals a total of 4 to Seb's face. With nothing else, Felix passes. Seb draws and plays Nidier's Nightblade. They then cast a Moldervine Reclamation, and play a Polluted Delta, sacrificing it and losing 1 to go and find a Witch's Cottage. With the trigger on the stack, Seb sacrifices the Springbloom Druid to draw 1, gain 1, and mill 1. And they then cast a Grisly Salvage. Felix responds by casting Narset's Reversal on the Grisly Salvage, and he instead mills 5, and gets to keep a Reliquary Tower off of it. The cottage then puts Ayara on top of Seb's library, and Seb then makes some fungi tokens as they move to their end step and pass to Max. Max draws, casting Serum Visions in his main phase. And he's not done with drawing, casting a Dig Through Time. This has Max making a dragon token, and he then plays an island, and then a Felwar Stone. Going to combat, Max swings Eris at Seb, and they take 7 because of prowess, and Max then moves to a second main phase. He equips Eris with the Swift-Foot Boots, and passes to me after that. I draw, and then play and crack a Verdant Catacombs, finding an untapped Watery Grave and losing 2 more. I then cast Lord of the Void, a card that I really have wanted to cast in this deck, and I get to draw a card off of Garruk's Uprising. I then move the Lavispur Boots onto the Lord. Going to combat, I swing the Lord of the Void at Seb, and Seb responds by sacrificing the plant to the Altar of Dementia, to stop me from stealing their Ayara by drawing it with a Moldervine Reclamation trigger. Seb then exiles their top 7 twice, and I get a Species Specialist off the first trigger, and then an Acolyte of Affliction off the second. I get to draw 2 from Grazilax as well, plus lose 1 life and draw a card from Gix because of Felix's side. Felix draws and plays a Reliquary Tower. He casts an Aura Frostfang and then casts a Demonic Tutor. He goes into his library to find a card, which we're pretty sure is Sword of Feast and Famine, as he casts it immediately afterwards. He then equips it onto Felix, and I make a brilliant joke in response. It's Felix Five-Boots, not Felix Five-Sword. Moving to combat, Felix swings his creature counterpart at Seb, and a Fairy Dragon at Max. Seb and Max both take the hits, and Seb has to discard 2, while Felix untaps his lands twice. Felix also draws 10 cards total, and loses 4 life, and then exiles our top 2 cards, and deals 2 to each of Max's dragons, which die because of Death Touch from the Frostfang. In this post-combat main phase, Felix then casts a Soul Ring from the exiled cards, and plays one of them, which is Sir Conrad, and passes to Seb. Seb draws and casts a Yara again, which drains us as she comes in. They then cast Bad Moon. Seb follows up with a Grizzly Salvage, and we all lose 1 from Sir Conrad, as they've been one of the creatures. They then follow up with a Blood Artist, and sacrifice their 4 fungi to the Altar of Dementia. This is all of Felix's opponents taking 4 from Sir Conrad, and Seb drains everyone for another 4 with Nadir's Nightblade, but also drains Felix for 4 with the Blood Artist triggers. Seb mills a total of 8, and draws 4, and gains 4 off the Moldervine Reclamation. Sir Conrad then triggers off the mills even more, and Max and I drop even further. Moving to their end step, Seb gets to make 11 fungi off the Mycotyrant, which drains everyone for 11 from a Yara, and wins them the game. Game review time. Felix Fest was 1 hour and 14 seconds of Felix playing with himself over and over again in front of us. His deck was much harder than mine, and he went much deeper. Enough funny ways of saying things, but a lot of his cards were drawing him a bunch of cards. Gix and that Aura and Frostfang were great. All of the swords were also equally very powerful, and even that Feywild Visitor was great. I think he's done a fantastic job of building a deck around his namesake. Maxim's Eris Roar of the Storm deck, we didn't really get to see too much. He made 2 dragons, which is great since there is a stipulation of having to cast 2 spells a turn, but it seemed like he was running out of gas or draw. He was really only drawing into cantrips, and although that Flame Jab always gave him an outlet in the yard as long as he had a land, it just wasn't enough. On the flip side of Felix's deck, my deck was the only one that actually won with a flavor win, as my Felix deck was the only one that had boots out. Seb's win was pretty surprising, although they did fight pretty hard to keep that Ayara around, which I guess I should have dealt with earlier on. I thought I was doing the right thing smacking them with the Lord of the Void to try and steal Yara, but unfortunately that didn't work out. And they were really the only player at the table who actually had some kind of life game, put them in a really good position that last turn. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.